What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Dan Casper here with you. A Victory Monday edition of the Man Cave podcast as the Packers absolutely dominating the Dallas Cowboys in the wild card round. Justus Cleveland is going to be joining me here in just a little bit, but this podcast we're talking all about the Packers win against the Dallas Cowboys. So let's jump into it right away. How about this stat, though, to kind of lead things off with the podcast? Packers held Micah Parsons to just one pressure on 19 pass rushes. That is Micah Parsons' lowest pressure rate in a game in his entire career. Parsons had his only pressure come on an unblocked pass rush. Zach Tom held him to 0 pressures in 9 matchups. If we look at Next Gen Stats right tackle pressure rate leaders this season, including the playoffs, number 1 this year in the league, Zach Tom. Second-year man out of Wake Forest. Packers might have themselves another pretty darn solid right tackle over there. Locking it down over there, baby. But holding, limiting, slowing down that pass rush for Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. Easily one of the biggest factors in that Packers win from yesterday. Let's catch up on a few texts coming up here. G-Man a little bit earlier. DK, wow, what a game for the Pack. I've got my Jordan Love jersey on. Dame time. Made the winning shots at the end of the game for the Deer Bucks and 6. Also, can't wait until the rankings come out to see where Bucky Badger will be ranked. Living a dream, Jeff. Good morning, Dan. Nothing better than having a Cowboy fan at the house. Cowboy fan talking so much smack before and during the game. I believe there was a tear in the eye by the fourth quarter. Needless to say, they didn't join me in my victory scotch. That a boy. Go Pack Go. Living the dream. Josh, that was arguably one of the best Packer games I've ever seen. Reminds me of the Falcons game in 2010. Brandon's mom, B's mom here. How about those Packers? What a game. The love train is rolling into San Francisco Saturday night, baby. Go Pack Go. Man Cave lights were flowing while cooking in the garage. You know, kind of want to almost bust out a victory scotch on a Victory Monday right now. Kind of want to feel that right now, but man. So let's talk a little bit more about this Packers offensive output last night. Offensive line starts up there. The protection that they were able to provide for Jordan Love. We went through Zach Tom's numbers. We went through some of the other advanced statistics out there in the first part there. Offensive line. We've kind of almost say it every single year. It's about the trenches, right? Winning in the trenches. Packers offensive line won in the trenches yesterday. Give that entire unit a ton of credit. Zach Tom, Walker, Myers, Jenkins, Runyon, Sean Ryan, whenever he's in there, that offensive line has really come together throughout this season. We talk about growth. We talk about, how Jordan Love has gotten better this year, how these young receivers have gotten better, tight ends. But this offensive line is that group that, maybe we don't spend a whole lot of time talking on or giving a lot of credit to. You got to look at that group, though, and the growth that they have gone through this season. And just how much better they have gotten as the season progresses. Answers a lot of questions, too, maybe about the future of their offensive line. Is Walker that long-term starter at left tackle? He's playing pretty darn well. Zach Tom, promising rookie year last year, following it up with a better second year this year. Long-term fixture on that offensive line. Elton Jenkins is just solid all across the board. Josh Myers, probably his best season at the center spot. This offensive line coming together. It starts up there, opening up holes for the running game, pass protection, allowing Jordan Love to do his thing back there. This offensive line was a big reason why this team won yesterday. Then you have Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones just cooking, man. Just wheeling and dealing in his home state of Texas. You know, a few days ago, when he said, I think I'm just entering my prime, everybody kind of maybe chuckled at it, like, okay, you know, guy entering maybe the back end of his career. Of course, turned 29 in December. You know, you hit that 30-year-old mark, and then people start to think, okay, running backs, that's their wall. So when he says, I'm just entering the prime of my career, people thinking, yeah, haha, funny, just kind of maybe speak. He wants to stay around, still wants to get paid. The way he's running right now, how can you argue against the man? How can you argue from what you've seen from Jordan Love? I mean, this guy has been on a tear, an absolute tear right now. You look at his last few games, 4 games in a row now, over 100 yards on the ground. Last 4 games, over 20 carries per game. This is the difference Aaron Jones makes with this offense. When he's in and when he's healthy and he doesn't have any restrictions or snap counts, he is the heart and soul of this offense. He is what gets it going. It was a great point, I thought, by Greg Olsen during the telecast yesterday when he was talking about the running game and Aaron Jones and such. It was what he thought, too, a belief from him, the development of the long passing game, the deep passing game, the Packers' willingness and success of throwing the ball down the field, helping out the running game. And he's right. We always talk about setting up the run or establishing the run to set up the pass. But ever since, halfway through the season, when Matt LaFleur and the Packers offense said, all right, screw it, let's let it rip. They let that sucker rip. They've been having success down the field, and the running game has benefited from it too. And having a healthy Aaron Jones involved in that is a big boost to it. But 4 games in a row now that the Packers have relied heavily on Aaron Jones and running the ball. No A.J. Dillon these last few games. Emmanuel Wilson got 8 carries yesterday, a lot of it in some cleanup time and such. But they put that load on Aaron Jones again, and boy, did he come through. 5.6 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. He likes playing in his home states. Likes playing in Jerry World over there. I know I said it at the beginning. Part of me at the beginning of the year, and I know I wasn't the only one, I was like, okay, are they going to move on? And I didn't want them to move on from Aaron Jones, and I'm like, contract number, are they going to move on and maybe try to find somebody younger and that? And no, please don't. You can't. You can't. Why would you at this point? You can still draft a running back. You can still draft a running back and kind of have some depth there, but there's absolutely no way, none, that you should move on from 33. No. Don't even think about it. And then, again, you had another receiver coming up and having himself a game. It was Romeo Doubs yesterday. 6 targets, 6 catches, $151, and a touchdown. Dontavian Wicks, touchdown. Luke Musgrave, 3 catches, 52. Tucker Kraft, couple catches on there too. Jaden Reed was targeted 3 times. Guy didn't have a catch. Christian Watson was back in the game. Could tell it was a little bit of a limited role, but he got a catch, 9 yards. Bo Melton, the guy who's been catching everything, it seems like, the last couple weeks, targeted just a couple times, got a catch. It was the Romeo Doubs game. And it's kind of been a theme lately with this offense. It's like, which receiver is it going to be today? One day it's Bo Melton. One day it's Jaden Reed. One day it's Dontavian Wicks. It was Christian Watson before he got hurt. Well, yesterday it was Romeo Doubs. Guy went out there and balled out. Jordan Love doing his thing. 16 of 21, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nearly a perfect quarterback rating if Tucker Kraft doesn't drop that last pass at the end there. Threading the needle on some throws. His deep ball accuracy. You want to talk about improvement? Jordan Love easily has gotten better as the season progresses, making a name for himself, putting his name out there in a national sense. Boy, this kid, he's still a kid, but this kid has potential to be pretty darn good. Pretty good. But I want to give some love too to Matt LaFleur, man. Again, it seemed like this was another game where this guy just seemed to have been a step ahead of the opposing defensive coordinator. In this case, his former boss, and Dan Quinn. It seems like when this offense is just humming and rolling, a big part of that is when Matt LaFleur is also humming and in a groove and rolling with his play call. That was a fantastic performance in terms of play calling yesterday. I mean, to establish the run, staying patient with the run, staying with it. But, you're getting the run, and then you're calling your play action game. You've got Luke Musgrave, who's wide open, Romeo Doubs wide open across the middle. I mean, it was a perfectly, and then your scripted plays to begin the game with. It was a perfectly executed offensive game plan. Nearly perfect. I don't know if anything's perfect, but boy, if it wasn't perfect, it was pretty darn close. Matt LaFleur did a fantastic job in play calling that game yesterday. It just felt like every time that offense was out there, they were going to do something. They were going to go out there and they were going to come away with some sort of points. He was dialed in. It was like he knew exactly what the Cowboys were going to do on that play. Matt LaFleur was a guy. October, even September, maybe a little bit in beginning of November, was under a lot of scrutiny from Packers fans. We had a few Packers fans chime in saying, you got to fire Matt LaFleur. You got to fire Matt LaFleur. For those of you who said that Matt LaFleur needs to be fired, where are you at right now? That guy has been doing a fantastic job. And for anybody who thought or even said that the guy has lost the locker room, couldn't be further away. There is absolutely no way that guy has lost the locker room. We are finally, and I know everybody's kind of beaten this to the pulp, but this is the offense that I think we all were kind of hoping to see when he was first brought on. And you get it, you come in and you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback already, and you kind of maybe meet in the middle a little bit. You adjust and you do some of the stuff that he likes. Actually, probably the majority of the stuff that he likes. You adjust your philosophy, your scheme a little bit to it. Now he's out. You're molding this quarterback, right? One of his main job duties was to mold Jordan Love. Kind of like when Mike McCarthy was first brought into Green Bay. Okay, they had Brett, but they had this young, raw quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Big role for Mike McCarthy was helping to develop Aaron Rodgers. Did a really good job at that. And right now it sure looks like Matt LaFleur is doing a fantastic job with that. But also, we are seeing the offense that I think Matt LaFleur is more comfortable in. The offense that he wants to do. His offense, which... if you go back at the beginning of the year, when we chatted with Rob Domofsky from ESPN about that very topic, and he mentioned, Matt LaFleur hates it, doesn't like it when people say, finally his offense, because his response is, what have we been doing the last few years? I get it. It's typical coach speak, but we also can see the writing on the wall. We can see it. The job, the play calling that he has done with this team, with this offense, is masterful. It was a masterclass performance yesterday. Studs. Matt LaFleur is a stud. And that was a hell of a performance from this Packers offense. Offensive line, Aaron Jones, Jordan Love, receivers / tight ends, coaching. Fantastic. All the teams that maybe want to interview Dan Quinn for head coaching jobs, he's probably hoping, hey, don't look at this game. My former quarterback's coach whooped my butt. Whooped his butt. And, I don't know how else to describe this team in the last month and a half, maybe going back to Thanksgiving, the last couple months. But boy, this has been a lot of fun, hasn't it? I don't know of anybody who's kind of maybe changed their expectations or goals or anything like that. Hey, we're winning the Super Bowl this year. I don't know anybody who's there yet. Maybe after if they beat the 49ers, it kind of goes there. But nonetheless, but how this has probably been, I won't say the whole season because let's be real. October, it was frustrating, right? The ups and downs and the waves, and it was like, what are we doing here? I won't say it was the whole season, but these last couple months, this has probably been one of the most fun times of being a Packers fan that I can remember. Just seeing these guys, these group of guys like, who, what, huh? And they're going out there and imposing their will on teams. They're an inexperienced, we know the stats, youngest team in the postseason since 1977 or whatever year it is. Least amount of experience. They're going in there, but they're going in there without this experience and with this youth about them, and they're imposing their own will on these veteran teams and these other teams out there. They don't care about the age anymore. They don't care about the inexperience. They're going out there and imposing their style of ball on these teams. They're getting it done. Fantastic. Man. It's been so fun to watch these last couple months. I went into that game yesterday a little bit with a mindset of like, okay, I'm going to try not to, easier said than done. I'm going to try not to get too emotionally involved in this game. I'm like, okay, just maybe, settle down here a little bit and try not to get too upset if it doesn't go great or anything like that. Last night, watching that game, first of all, that got out the window after the first drive. Completely out the window after the first drive. I can't remember the last time. It's been a little bit, but I can't remember the last time I was so geeked up throughout a game. So pumped up about a game throughout a game than I was yesterday. I mean, jumping out of my chair and high-stepping after Darnell Savage had the pick six. Luke Musgrave wide open, catching the ball, getting in. Hudson was going crazy. I got my own little mini-me who's addicted to the game now. We're high-fiving, hooting and hollering. Scared the crap out of the family dog throughout the game. I can't remember the last time having a game like that where it was so awesome watching and so much fun watching it. It's been a little bit. It's been a hot minute. Man. Winter is here in the Chippewa Valley, which means it's even more important to make sure you have a good vehicle to hit the winter roads of Wisconsin. Need that vehicle for this winter season? Look no further than Toyson Ford in Chippewa Falls. Whether it's a car, truck, or SUV from their new or used inventory, Toyson Ford has the vehicle you're looking for. Making sure you have a good, proper working vehicle is incredibly important this winter season, and Toyson Ford knows that. Just give them a visit today at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard and visit ToysonFord.com. Joining us now, we've got Justus Cleveland, sports director extraordinaire for WEAU 13 News, joining us. Justus, Packers with a big, dominating win against the Dallas Cowboys yesterday.
I want to say that me and you, though, we didn't call it. I don't want to say I called it. Mm-hmm. We said there was always a good chance this game. This was the perfect opponent, I think, for the Packers to play.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys were the pressure was completely on Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I remember in my head, if I'm remembering this, I have to go back and listen, but I think I said if they can get ahead early, that's a big, big positive for the Packers.
It was a perfect drive. 8-minute drive and touchdown right away.
They just set the tone. They really did. And then the defense playing so well, and Dallas just looking like they almost, you don't want to say overlooked the Packers, but that's the way it looked like for the start. Like they didn't expect this from this Packers team.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of weird in the game, and maybe I was just missing something, but they were really the telecast was really focused on the body language of CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, am I missing something there? Like, it just felt like they were really, like, trying to focus on that because they hit it right away. Like, after that first drive where McCarthy's talking to him and all that, and I'm like, it seemed to be really early to be talking about a body language and disconnects between CeeDee Lamb and all that.
Is there something we're not privy to with that? But wasn't it it was Amari Cooper? It was one of the playoff games. It was kind of the same thing of them talking about how Amari didn't seem like he was into it.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, Dak did not look good that first half. Obviously, they were able to score. In most games, when you score as much as they did in the second half, you end up winning the game.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, it was just ugly on the Dallas side. I mean, Dan Quinn, guy who's, they're talking about going to be a head coach somewhere. That was not a good audition.
No.
I don't know what their game plan. I think they thought they could just get home constantly. I think they underestimated how well that Packers offensive line has gelled.
Yeah,
and the chip blocking. The fact that you had Aaron Jones up there going against Micah Parsons.
It was a huge block on Aaron Jones had on Parsons on that one play.
I mean, it was for the Packers. The formula was perfect. For Dallas, I think the formula was just disaster. I think they really looked like they were sleepwalking in that first half, and the Packers did what they had to do to take advantage.
I know we kind of touched on it on Monday a little bit there, but, now everybody's wondering, is Bill Belichick going to be the guy going into Dallas? I mean, it's not good for Mike McCarthy. I mean, great regular season win. I mean, but you look at this, and, I mean, you read what Jerry Jones or hear what he said after the game and calling it one of the most upsetting. And I mean, they fully expected, they thought they were going to win that game. And maybe that's the fault to their own, too, going into that, thinking they were going to win that game.
I think they were overconfident. I really do. And anybody who had watched this Packers team all year knew that they could play up to their opponent's level. They can play down to their opponent's level, too. We've seen that plenty of times this season, too. But, I mean, if you saw them beat Kansas City, that should have been, the light bulb should have went off like, okay, this is a team that's for real. But I don't know. I for the Dallas, Mike McCarthy, any other place, he's probably fine. But Dallas he knew signing up what he was getting into.
Yep.
And playoffs are all that matter. Yep. In Dallas.
Yep.
So will McCarthy land on his feet? Probably. I mean, he's probably gonna get another job.
You think he'd get a third shot somewhere?
I think he will.
Yeah,
it's not like he's like, look at his regular season record.
Yeah.
It's great.
One of his best friends is currently looking for a coach, John Schneider in Seattle.
Wouldn't that be funny if somehow it works out that Mike McCarthy...
Look at the teams that Mike McCarthy would go to after Green Bay, considering the history he's had with these teams when he was in Green Bay. Dallas and then Seattle. I mean, that would just be... You can't write a better script than that.
I think Seattle, too, would be... I mean, if you want to go somewhere where you have a best shot of winning right away, I think Seattle's that place. I think Seattle's still set up to be a success. Now, if you go to Carolina or something like that... No, that's a total rebuild that... Unless you're like Houston and somehow... roll the dice and things work out as quickly as they did. I don't think that team's in the place. Tennessee's not in a bad place, I don't think either.
Right.
But, I mean, it'll see how it all rolls out. And he could still end up being the Cowboys coach.
Right.
But, I mean, after that first half. I mean, to have a whole... I mean, I can't imagine. I wasn't really looking at Dallas Twitter as much as other than people that, that can follow that somehow are Dallas fans. But it can't be good right now.
No, and let's just say it, the gonads of Matt LaFleur to win the toss in a hostile environment.
Yep.
Pull his best Matt Hasselbeck, we want the ball and we're going to score. To throw your young offense, inexperienced offense, let's just call it, first-time start for Jordan Love in a postseason, going up against Dallas, and like the crowd's going into it, their defense is out there.
And that defense is a good defense.
Yes. And nope. 8 minutes, touchdown.
To me, it was just showing how much this offense has grown on every facet of the game. You know, everything early in the season, you'd have one thing looking good, one thing wasn't looking good, another thing was looking good.
Mm-hmm.
All around, things are looking good. And then you have Aaron. I think Aaron Jones is the big key.
Yep.
I think having that veteran in there and just running as hard as he does. I mean, Aaron Jones, to me, runs harder than anybody I've seen. He kind of reminds me, I mean, I'm kind of too young, but I remember the Walter Payton. The guy who just runs as hard as he can every run.
Yep.
And then he gets punished, but man, does he get the yards.
Yeah, he does.
And for him to set the tone like that, and I don't know if I've seen a quarterback, and this is saying a lot because, I mean, we saw Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers back-to-back, who can throw off his back foot and know where he's throwing. He's throwing to the zone. He's throwing to a spot.
Yeah.
He's not throwing to the guy. He's throwing to a spot, and he knows the exact spot. And these balls are lofted. These aren't like rocket. Like, that was Rodgers and Favre. It was just the rockets to the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Love just knows that little spot, soft spot in the zone where he just needs to loft it.
Yeah.
And find a receiver. And credit to the receivers for knowing where they need to be.
Right.
But, I mean, it's been just amazing, especially I think it's the second half of the season where we've seen a lot more of those just throw over the middle, and you're thinking it's going to be intercepted.
Yeah.
Because it's just a lofted ball,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you see the receiver come in, make the grab, and go. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a quarterback able to do that like he does.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you take a piece of paper and you're going to throw it, do the Kobe into the garbage.
Exactly.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
He's just throwing it up, and all of a sudden the receiver comes in there
Yep.
and gets it. So
A little fadeaway there.
yeah.
Yep.
And then the receiver's going up to get the ball, too. I mean, he's throwing them in the right place. And that's where you now look at, like, what Brian Gutekunst saw in him and what Matt LaFleur saw in him. Because we didn't see that. Like, you don't know that a guy can do that until you see him out on the field. And I think as his confidence grew, he's been able to do it. I think we saw him miss a lot of those passes early in the season.
Well, what was one of the things that was coming out right at the beginning? Well, the deep ball accuracy and all that. And that's gotten better.
Right. But I don't think it's like the deep, like he doesn't have to do that.
Right.
He's throwing these over the middle, and I think this is where it's the difference between him and Rodgers. Rodgers liked those outside guys. If he was going deep, it was going more than likely to the outside. Love's not afraid to find that spot in the middle and find it, not have like a Devontae Adams who he has to throw it to. Mm-hmm. It's whoever's there is getting that ball. So I've been overly impressed by him the last few weeks. And, yeah, we'll see what it goes here in the next week. But, again, playing with house money. And at this point, it's a victory for the Packers this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like to go back to what you're saying, maybe I think we would have been surprised with either outcome at this. But the fact that it was just pure domination, I think, is what's got a lot of people surprised and a lot of Packer fans pumped up.
Oh, I think, yeah. I mean, that gives you hope going into the 49ers, which is another team that has taken hope away from the Pack. It's funny because you go from your two most experienced now because of the Packers and Cowboys had the 9th time. I think this will be the 10th time now, so that'll be the all-time record again for playoff battles between the 49ers and Packers, and it hasn't been a very good outcome for the Packers in recent history.
And I thought I heard, I'd have to look this up, but I thought I'd heard, or maybe it was something on the telecast or somewhere on Twitter, I think it might have been Twitter, if the Packers would have won yesterday, they would have tied or became the team with the most postseason wins?
Yes, I think because they had the most appearances with Dallas.
Okay.
So now they probably should have the most. Well, no, it goes by years, so never mind. That doesn't
right. I thought it was something, because I think it was talking about Patriots and then Green Bay. I'll double check. Yeah. I think it might have been like.
Well, I mean, it should be. I mean, the Packers have been in the playoffs
the
majority of my lifetime. So
yeah,
first 11 years, no, but after that, from 91 on, it's been every year they're in. So for the last 32 years, success.
Exactly. So there was something else. Oh, you talk about the middle of the field here. And I'm going to revisit this. This is what I was Googling here a little bit, because at the beginning of the year, we were we talked to Rob Domofsky from ESPN, and the narrative of this is finally going to be Matt LaFleur's offense, right? Finally going to be Matt LaFleur's offense, and we were talking to Rob about that, and he chuckled because he was actually working on an article at that point in time about how this offense is going to look different. Because you asked Matt LaFleur, he's like, it's not good. It's always been my offense,
right?
Coach speak. He's not going to, come out there and say, yep, I finally get to do what I want because Aaron Rodgers is out of town.
Right.
Sort of thing. But a lot of the numbers, if my memory serves me correctly, and that's why I want to look back at it, but they did like the next-gen stats and looked at a lot of stuff, more middle-of-the-field type of stuff. And I think we're seeing that
oh, yeah.
this year big time. I mean, how many times did Romeo Doubs seem like oh, some of those passes, Love's chucking, and all of a sudden Romeo's right there, picking up that big first down or something. It's just been, you're right, because Aaron, it seemed like he really tried to utilize the sideline a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he wanted those little tight windows to the sideline. And credit to Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, he knew how to find those windows a lot of the time.
Yep.
You don't see Love doing as much rolling out either.
Right.
Whereas Rodgers would escape that pocket and roll out. I think that's part of Love's thing, is that he's able to throw in those tight pockets and still get the pass off. And that's maybe where they're coming off the, throwing off the back foot. You would never want to teach anybody how to do that, but man, he knows how to do it and do it effectively.
Yep.
We've said that about Favre. We've said that about Rodgers. Is just those little intangibles that can make you a great quarterback. And right now, again, this is 1 year. The Hall of Fame stuff and all that. We'll go down visit that down the road if he was there for 10 years. But for 1 year right now, he looks to be legit one of the top quarterbacks in the league right now.
Yeah, just a little bit here because I have that article up here. Just paraphrasing some of it, but it said Rodgers shied away from the middle of the field between the painted numbers. When asked whether Rodgers did that by design, LaFleur said no, because I feel like a lot of our offense is predicated on going numbers and numbers. Again, kind of coach speak there. Yet, in 4 years of the Rodgers-LaFleur pairing, Rodgers threw to the middle of the field less frequently, 41.4%, than all but one of 46 quarterbacks with at least 500 pass attempts. The only one with fewer, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, so there you go.
I would love Rob to revisit this now.
Yeah.
To do that.
That would, because, again, I think we're seeing it more and more, and that's what you need. You need to get everybody involved, and if you're going in the middle of the field, that's where the majority of your players are.
Yeah.
Those one-on-one matchups are going to be on the outside, but if you can get to the middle of the field and get more and more guys involved and make them feel like they're a big, vital cog to the offense, you're going to find more success, and I think that's been the key to this offense, especially the second half of the season.
I agree. So, one question we did have a little bit earlier, something you kind of touched on last week too. Players love him. And that is Joe Barry saving his job?
I mean, the way they came out, you can say what you want about the second half, but that was we're up by 30, kind of thing where not 30, but you know what I mean. Like they're up big. They have so I don't want to fault them for the second half because that could happen to pretty much any team.
And Matt LaFleur took some of the blame, saying, I shouldn't have taken out the starters.
Right. He took his foot off the accelerator, and you never want to do that in a playoff game. But the first half, the way that defense knew where they needed to be every time, the interceptions that these guys were coming, and just making Dak Prescott and that offense feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, he might be. I mean, fans can... It's very Dom Capers-esque.
Yeah.
As soon as he thought that it was enough that they were going to run him out of town, he comes up with big performances.
If they slow down the 49ers,
oh
boy, that might do it.
Yeah.
I thought I admit I've been one that says anything short of a Super Bowl about, but I'm kind of changing that a little bit. Like if he goes out there and that defense shuts down San Francisco's offense, an offense that has had their way against Green Bay more times than not.
Oh yeah.
Especially running the football. We know Kyle Shanahan. If he wants to go in there and run the ball 50 times, he will run the ball 50 times.
Right. He'll do what needs to be done. He's not going to fall for, having to have a 50-50 mix. He'll go and run, and with, Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And other guys that you can throw. You can throw Deebo out there and get some yards.
Yep.
They're very much able to kind of switch things up. It's going to be a tough test. And you can honestly look at it this way. Does Joe Barry want to come back after all that he's been through? Because with his contract up, right? It's the end of this season that his contract's up.
Yeah.
He's got choices he's got to make too.
Right.
And it hasn't been.
Because that's the thing, right, too. And I know everybody's said it before. It's like, because the contract does fire, if we want to get into, the proper way of saying it or anything like that. I mean, not renewing it or whatever. It's the same thing, as being fired or not. So, but I don't know.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be a decision probably on both sides now.
Yeah. Because
if you have a guy come out and say, in one of those pressers that it's been a tough week on his family,
right?
That doesn't seem like he feels like he's very invited,
right,
into the Packers. And, the fans have been on him forever
since he's been hired.
Yeah, since he's been hired, because he wasn't.
He was Detroit's defense coordinator when he went 0-16, and
wasn't Jim
stuff.
Leonard. Jim Leonard was the one that everybody, even though Jim Leonard probably
turned him down, they apparently.
Yeah. So it's like. It'll be an interesting decision, but I think he's done a good job these last 3 or 4 weeks, really, of putting together game plans, and it's all up to the players executing it. Mm-hmm. And the players have you get Jair, you don't know if you're going to have him play, then have him have a key interception right away.
Yep.
You have Keyshawn Nixon, who was basically everybody was just a return guy.
Mm-hmm.
Had no one was talking about him at all defensively. Come out and is playing great in the defensive backfield. I mean, that's credit to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's credit to his coaches.
Yeah.
So, you can't discount what he's done lately.
A lot of these position coaches have done a fantastic job.
Yes.
I think this year. I mean, Tom Clements,
Yep.
Jason Vrabel, the wide receivers coach. I mean, you can go Luke Butkus if you wanted for the offensive line growth. Is it Dutton, the tight ends coach?
Yeah.
I think. I mean, go down the line of some of these guys. Even the defensive backs coach for Carrington Valentine ready to go out there and, secondary and that. A lot of these position coaches deserve a big tip of the cap.
Tom Clemens, man, that guy probably deserves more kudos than he's ever going to get.
Mm-hmm.
His quarterbacks that have played for him obviously have loved him.
Yep.
But, man, for him to come in, and now we're seeing the best of Jordan Love with him there, very similar to what he did with Rodgers.
Yeah.
That guy has done a great job and probably one of the unheralded heroes the last 20 years of Packer football.
Yeah. Yeah. For the whatever. And you look at the 1 year, too, that he had in Arizona, might have been Kyler Murray's best year in Arizona, too. Because he was the quarterback coach over there for a couple years. But, yeah, for the year that Kyler Murray had, Tom Clements was the quarterback's coach for him.
He is a quarterback whisperer. You've heard all those. Cliff Kingsbury was the quarterback whisperer and stuff like that. Tom Clements has a proven track record of what he has done to make these guys up to the next level. And whatever he does, I would love to be in that classroom to kind of see what he teaches these guys, because it works. It really works. Because
I love his pressers because he's got such a dry sense of humor, too. And you often wonder, is that the same person you see in these meetings?
Right.
Behind the closed wall or behind closed doors and all that, because, he's a little sarcastic at times with his pressers. I mean, I still remember when he first got back to Green Bay a couple years ago, first question to him from a writer was, what drew you back to Green Bay, or what got you back to Green Bay? Delta. That was his answer, stuff like that. So,
right.
Even when he was under Mike McCarthy, it just seemed like very kind of dry sense of humor, no nonsense type of dude. But players love him.
Yeah, and I would say I think Rodgers had Rodgers did win an MVP without him, but I think his best years were when Tom Clements were involved, and I think Tom was able to kind of maybe pull in the reins a little bit more.
Yep.
And it happens almost with every quarterback. Once they get that experience, they kind of now start doing things on their own.
Yep.
But I think we're seeing him help Jordan Love reach a level that I don't think any of us expected to see him at this year.
Yeah, exactly. It's that time of year where we may be stuck indoors for a bit, so you need to make sure your pantries, fridge, and freezers are fully stocked. How do you do that while also saving some money? Easy. Just shop at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Whether it's stocking the pantry with soups or dried goods, or loading up the deep freezer with pizzas and frozen foods, Hy-Vee has the best selection to help keep you stocked during the winter months. And with their Hy-Vee perks, you'll save money at the register and the gas pump. Stock up on your favorite grocery items and save money with Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Matt LaFleur, it seems like he's just been one step ahead of these defensive coordinators lately.
I don't know what Quinn's game plan is, but it just seemed like he came in there thinking that his soft zone defense playing off the line was going to be enough. Shouldn't you know that the Packers are so deep at wide receiver, giving him a cushion? And maybe, he thought maybe the blitzes would get home more and put more, he could rattle. And we've seen that Dallas defense rattle teams. It's kind of the same if you go to Kansas City when they go out on their full-out blitzes as well. They rattle quarterbacks to the point that they just can't make decisions anymore. That never happened yesterday at all. Jordan Love was just in the zone in that pocket there.
And he seems, what was it with Aaron Rodgers, don't blitz him because he'll hurt you. That was the 4 times that they got home to Jordan Love was 4 for 4.
Yeah.
It seems like that doesn't even faze him at this point now either.
The play I look at was the touchdown to Wicks.
Yeah.
Where he's at the line, and it was great because it was like an extended sequence where you see him calling out everything, controlling that line of scrimmage, get the snap, and it was one of those throws just off his back foot to Wicks, finding the spot in the zone in the middle there. I mean, it's everything we've kind of been talking about the last half hour was in that play there. That to me was maybe the most fun sequence because you see him in control of that line. Like, identifying everything,
Yeah.
calling out the changes, and then executing a touchdown pass. It's chef's kiss right there. That to me is like what you want. And that's like if you're Matt LaFleur and Tom Clements looking back on that. Stenovich, too. Let's not take him out of the equation there, too. That has got to be everything you've wanted him to be. Mm-hmm. And that was just pretty. I got to imagine up in Gutekunst's box, there was some high-fiving going on.
Well, I heard, or I didn't hear, but I saw Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers. He said, I think it was that play, because he said when it went to 20-0, the announcer in the press box had to remind people there was no cheering. and Matt said, I don't know if the guy, gal, or whoever knew who they were, but he said the people that were cheering was Goody and the Packers brass in there after that play. Like they were just going nuts in the press box after that.
You know, if Dallas is up 20-0, that place is. Yeah, there are people up there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at Jerry Jones's box, and now granted he's not in the press box, but
right. Yeah. It's just he said one of the more comical things from yesterday was at that moment, and it was actually Goody and the Packers that were
I can't
cheering.
Imagine what happened right after the pick six happening right after that.
Right, exactly. But you talk about Goody and that, and I kind of was talking a little bit earlier. If there's one guy that should be kind of like keeping receipts and tooting his horn right now or feeling really good, Goody got to be that guy now.
Oh yeah,
I mean the draft class, Jordan Love, a lot of his decisions right now are like, this is why I did it. Yep.
Packers can't draft wide receivers.
Yeah. I mean, good Lord. Yeah, it's
and
just
his really. I mean, there's been.
He has set the bar so high now for draft classes that we're going to expect everything like this class.
Defensively, there's been some struggles on some of the drafts, but I mean, offensively, you almost have to just apply. Not even like drafting, just signing guys and finding, Bo Melton.
Yeah,
a guy who gets drafted by Seattle but doesn't make the squad and. Coming out now in his first year, and putting in just great minutes. I mean, it's not a hockey game, but it's what it feels like. Almost like he's getting his shift and doing a good job.
Well, it feels like every game, every week, it's been a different wide receiver though too.
Yeah,
it was Romeo, which surprised me. Romeo Dobbs' first 100-yard gain in his career was yesterday.
For a guy who's kind of been,
Mr. Consistent, almost it feels like, So he had a game. You didn't really hear Jayden Reed or Bo Melton in the game yesterday, and those were two guys you heard a lot about the last couple of weeks. Dontavian Wicks had the touchdown catch over there too, but it's just like, and I thought Greg Olsen made an interesting point in the telecast where he was talking about the Packers. They don't have that number one wide receiver. He said, because they're spreading the ball around. He's like, that's great for a quarterback. It makes it a little bit harder for a play caller. Because you can always okay, we got to get the ball to this guy.
Devontae, where Devontae's going to be.
Yep, exactly. He said, but for a quarterback sense, you don't have that pressure like, okay, I got to get it to that guy.
Right. You don't have somebody calling his names, like saying I'm open all the time. And maybe a CeeDee Lamb situation like you had with Dak in the first half there.
And it just, you've been in the locker room, but it just seems like from the outside, this wide receiving group, though, too, genuinely feels like they root for each other.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody they all want to get the ball.
Right.
But I think they all want team first success.
Yeah.
And that's, this day and age in the NFL, it's usually you have one big guy and then, the cast of characters around him. But I hope it stays like that. And who knows? I mean, maybe they're too young to care.
Yeah.
That's where it kind of, that's why with this team, it's like they're too young to care about a lot of this stuff. And, a lot of this stuff has entered their head. They're just thinking, we're in the playoffs.
Right.
I'm in my second year in the league, first year in the league, and we're in the playoffs.
Right.
That's all they're thinking, which is great to see. Now, years down the road, that might change, but for right now, it's lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And was it after the Vikings game? I think what reporters were saying, like Dobbs and Watson were just going nuts for Bo Melton. Bo Melton was getting the attention.
Yeah. They loved it.
And they were like recording him and just going nuts for him. And it's like, yeah, maybe it is because they're young and foolish and they don't know anything better. Maybe it'll develop after, maybe a guy kind of rises above and becomes that number one. But it honestly kind of still reminds me, though, too, like when it was Jordy and Randall and James Jones, you had a couple guys really, but that was a group that you could tell genuinely like supported each other, too.
And you really do see it in the locker room. I was thinking like back to after the Bears win is, we were talking to Quay Walker and Stokes. His locker's right next to him, and Stokes took one of the ladders. It was our ladder that we were using to get. We weren't using it because we were right in front. And he's standing up on the ladder, looking at looking at Quay doing his, and it's just like these guys generally are rooting for each other to find success, and that's great because you have a lot of interaction, and Jordan Love and all the receivers have talked about how they've had this interaction and how Love has the meetings and gets everybody together.
Yep.
That is, as a coach, that means you're not forcing this onto these. These guys are taking it on their own to be a team together.
Yep.
And when things start going right, that instantly makes it a lot easier to coach these guys. And I think, when things were going wrong, and maybe you want to, you look at Rasul Douglas and how that was going.
Yep.
I think they knew that was like, okay, let's just get Rasul. Rasul's a good player, and people love him, but I think it was taking a toll on Rasul. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, we don't want this to spread to other guys. And he was gone.
Yeah. And
I don't think it was because Rasul's a bad guy. I think it was just one of those, he's an emotional guy, but you don't want him spreading that emotion to other guys.
Right.
And he went to Buffalo, and it worked out for both teams, really.
Right, it did.
And then, even like the handling, I think they actually handled the Jair thing very well, because that could have been an ugly situation. Mm-hmm. Jair could have shut down.
He could have.
And just said, I'm done.
Yep.
Instead, he's, photobombing, live shots.
Yeah.
and coming out there and battling through an injury to get on the field and making a big play there. I mean, I think Matt LaFleur has just done a great job with that locker room, and that goes to Brian Gutekunst too as well for getting the right people in the places for a team to be this young but to be playing way over their age.
How when you look at it statistically, because you mentioned a name that I don't think we've talked a whole lot about this year, and you look at last year and compared to his numbers this year, and a lot of similarities, but at the same time, Quay Walker this year. Just how important he has been, but I think kind of quietly maybe important for this defense. You look at his numbers, 118 combined tackles. He had 121 last year. Caveat is he's played 2 fewer games this year because of injury. So, I mean, you add those on, he's probably got...
Right, would have been over
that easily.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, after rookie year, ejected twice. Very emotional. And it was Jair who kind of took him under his wing, apparently, in meditation and kind of called him there. But that guy this year, just how important he's been for this defense.
I think Quay's your quarterback on the field there. I mean, he's really he's a guy out there who kind of sets the tone. When he's having good games, and you see the rest of that defense seems to be having good games. When he struggles, it's kind of the same way. But he's made it a point, and he was saying this after the Chicago game too. Is like, I'm trying not to get too high, not too low about things. I'm trying to stay in that middle zone there. I mean, I can be excited, but I don't want to be overexcited. And that's growth.
Yeah.
That's growth of a player after seeing what happened last year and him getting big penalties and bad situations for the Packers to coming back and being like, okay, I got to control myself.
Yep.
And I think he's done, for the most part, a really good job of that. Most of the time on the defense they have, you'll get one of those penalties. They had a couple of scruffs, battles.
Slayton at the end yesterday, thrown down. There's a couple Badgers mixed in there with Ferguson and Biotic over there.
Yeah, but, I don't know. It's the Badgers against the Packers. T.J. Edwards with the Bears too. There's a couple of scraps there.
Yep.
Yeah, I credit it's going off the time, but Jake Ferguson. I mean, what a year he had for Dallas, establishing himself as one of the top tight ends in the league, and just he was the biggest playmaker for that team that game. So you saw a lot of growth from him this season. I don't know if anybody. I mean, he had big games when he was a Badger, but he's
nothing I don't think anybody expected that. Second
like Owen Daniels though too. I remember Owen Daniels had a great career at Madison, then he went to the Texans and just had an amazing career. So I think it's kind of the same thing.
Yep. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Matt LaFleur's post-game in the locker room.
Just a little bit. I didn't see it.
I loved the one, and this is the one that everybody's kind of clipping, because he goes through the highlights of the game, right? Whoever got, Aaron Jones, 3 touchdowns and all that. And Luke Musgrave stayed on his feet and that probably got the loudest cheer from everybody. But again, I think the connection in the locker room.
Right.
Everybody, a lot of people texted us, said Matt LaFleur doesn't have the locker room. He's lost it in October.
Right.
You don't know that. We don't know that.
No.
I don't think he's lost that locker room one bit.
No. I think you see, especially after, again, a lot of mine are for being at Lambeau during that Bears, just seeing the feed into the locker room. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's lost that locker room. I don't think Joe Barry lost any of his players. I think Joe Barry, those guys have been, supporting him the whole time too. Were there doubts? I'm sure there was doubts that crept in when they were 2-5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it had to be any team, but really, the way they've turned it around and knew they were close, and then just to have the run they've had here the last 2 months, it's been pretty amazing.
To go back to the Jair thing too, and I think you're exactly right. I think it was Kenny Clark can't remember who was talking to him after the game, but he talked about Jair and how much he means to his team and that. But yeah, a lot of other guys, getting suspended for a game, they could have shut it down, or they could have completely. And he comes out and says, "Yeah, I got to be more professional." That lasted a day, but that's because he's having fun,
right?
He goes in after that Bears game, and what he said, it smells like a casino. He's got a stogie in his headband, and then the Monday after, he's photobombing a live shot outside Lambeau Field and all that. He could have easily done it, but that speaks, I think, volumes to to not only Jair, but what he, I think, views that franchise, views that team as well. And I think he has a lot of respect for LaFleur, that coaching staff and his teammates over there too.
Yeah, I think obviously he knows he should have went about it a different way than just taking over the coin toss.
Right.
And I think he learned from that. But you got to let him also be who he is. You don't want to trap in that personality, or things might go wrong. Like you said, he could shut down or something like that. But he's a guy who likes to play loose. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw him come out there, test that ankle. I mean, that's the thing. Like him to be a game-time decision.
Yeah.
Maybe, probably hurt it a little bit again later in the game.
Right.
But that pick is huge. Like, you set the tone with that interception.
Yep.
And in that offense coming back out there and just getting another touchdown. I mean, everything about that is what you wanted to see with Jair after a situation that could have went south quickly.
And I think he's gotten an effect on these younger secondary members, because if you kind of I saw Anthony Johnson do it yesterday, the rookie safety. I've seen Carrington Valentine do this a few times. They emulate his celebration.
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of got some sway, or those guys look up to Jair in that.
And it's crazy
room.
because Jair's not very old.
Right.
But he's one of the veterans in that defense.
Yep.
It really is. I mean, it's crazy to think that he's almost in that Charles Woodson role on that team for the defensive backfield, but that's because he's one of the few that's been there over a year or two. It's just an amazing array of talent to get to where they are right now.
Yeah.
With the relative lack of experience they have.
When I was trying to think, because it's like, it's McCarthy going up against his former team, and I'm like, okay, but how many guys are still there?
Right.
It was Aaron Jones. Jair was his rookie season.
Yeah.
When McCarthy's. I can't remember.
David Bakhtiari, who wasn't even not playing.
Not Preston, because that was LaFleur's first year. I'm trying to go through the list there. Was
Kenny Clark?
Kenny Clark, that would be one. The other one was Elton there?
Oh, man.
I think he was.
He might have been.
I think he was a rookie that year, because he was a second-round pick after Jair, I think, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
So Elton. But, again, those guys were rookies.
Much. Yeah.
So there really isn't that connection, really, besides Aaron. And I know people were having fun with it, too, on social media, thanking Mike McCarthy for keeping Aaron Jones's legs fresh. Those first couple of years there, too. So, but really, there isn't that. There's so much turnover, there really isn't that much connection.
No, especially because, if your team's going to be the youngest in the NFL, that means you're not carrying much veteran. And I have to say, like, if you take Bakhtiari out of the equation for how young that team is, it's really young.
Exactly.
So, there wasn't much, but I think there had to be still a special thing to know that you're going against the guy who used to be the coach, took him to a Super Bowl, and got the title. And I think for McCarthy, it's probably where it hurts more, is to lose against a team that you want to beat so badly.
Yeah. We're all human. We have that same thoughts, and at certain points in our lives, regardless whether it was a middle school or high school or something like job-wise or something like that, you want to beat them. It doesn't. I did think it was kind of interesting where he did admit this week that last year's regular season game,
right?
He's like, we got to approach it a little bit differently. Well, it didn't matter, I guess, at this point. But
I feel honestly, I kind of feel bad for Mike McCarthy, but he knew the situation he was getting into with the Cowboys. It's the highest pressure. I'd say in the NFL, it's the highest pressure job in the NFL, regardless if they haven't won anything since '95. Still, it's the Yankees.
Yep.
it's the Yankees or Dodgers at this point. Dodgers of the Major League Baseball. Like they're the team that everybody's looking at. They're the Lakers. It's that team in the NFL. That's why they're worth the most money.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's kind of Mitch said that too a little bit earlier. I kind of feel bad for McCarthy with Jerry Jones. I don't think anyone can win it until he gets his hands out of the football operation.
Right, which isn't going to happen.
No,
as long as Jerry Jones is up in that box,
yep.
He's going to have his hands in football operations, and I don't know. I don't know what their next step is, but it might be Bill Belichick. Can Bill Belichick coexist in that situation?
That's what I wonder. And then you start seeing. This is what I always kind of like. Okay, this is so like. How did nobody say this before? So like whether it's the Ian Rappaports or the Schefters or the Tom Pelisseros, there was one that I saw that over the last few years, and they even threw a year at there, may have been since 2016 or something like that, at owners' meetings, Belichick and the Joneses have made it a point to come together and like really talk and get to know each other, and they've developed their relationship over the years. And it's like, now you throw that, like, where was this? Where was this early? It's like you're just, I'm going to save this and pocket this for 7 years or however, because you never know.
Right. But like Robert Kraft obviously is a very hands-on owner too.
Right.
So it's not like this wouldn't be unheard of, but does Jones give Belichick free reign for personnel?
I don't know. And this was from Darren Ravel too. It's like, okay, soon after Bill Belichick was let go from the Browns in 1996, he ran into Jerry Jones at a ski resort. I can coach, Belichick told Jones. If you ever get an opportunity, don't forget about me. Jones said on the radio in 2019 that he has often thought about that conversation.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, the guy won 6 Super Bowls, and you haven't won one since that era.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, well, look what Belichick's done, and then, you can revisit that. Like,
there's a lot of teams that I think he was probably in the mix when the Packers hired Holmgren, if I'm not. I might be mistaken there. Mm-hmm. Parcells had just left.
Yeah, I remember, reading Ron Wolf looked at Parcells, and I think it was because his heart issue, he had a health issue.
Yes, yep.
And that's why he didn't want to.
He was like doing TV or something for a year or two before he went to the Patriots.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
I'm sure Belichick, there was a possibility. I can't remember what the whole Cleveland situation was at that point, too. But, there's a lot of teams that can do a what if.
Right. It's like the draft picks, too. It's like, well, so.
Yeah.
A lot of those late draft picks, like, a lot of teams could have, unless you're
Donald Driver. Every team could have had Donald Driver.
Yeah, every team could have had Tom Brady too. Until
is it crazy how with the coaching changes this week, how they're all kind of in a way like the big names that left with Carroll, Belichick, and Saban all have like these weird little connections to each other,
right?
Because Carroll left and then Belichick took his job.
Yep,
and for the Patriots.
And even like Saban replaced Carroll at Ohio State as secondary coach back in the day.
And Saban and Belichick were on the same coaching staffs. Yep. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I guess in coaching, if you're in it that long, your paths seem to cross as much as it was. But it was just kind of crazy reading all these little, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon stuff with these guys. So.
And then now there's talk that after today's game, depending on what happens with Pittsburgh, Tomlin's apparently going to step away and think about stuff before he commits to next year. That's your longest tenured guy.
Yeah.
Then it's Harbaugh, John Harbaugh after that. I mean, it's a change. Matt LaFleur is like tied for 7th or 5th or whatever for longest tenured coach.
When you have 6 coaches getting canned every year, it doesn't take long for that turnover to just round its way to where now you're one of the guys who are long in the tooth now.
Exactly.
It's nuts. I mean, if Tomlin leaves, Bill Cowher to step back in? No, gosh.
That's the thing, though, too, is like if Tomlin leaves, does that job almost become the most attractive because of their stability? Like, they keep coaches.
Yeah.
It's Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. Does that almost like, regardless of talent, does a coach look at that like, hey, they're going to give me a shot, though, for a few years. It's not going to be like, if it doesn't work out, they're going to be patient a little bit.
But then again, you don't know anymore.
Right.
I mean, there's guys getting canned all the time now in their first years. Mm-hmm. Frank Reich. I mean, you hire a guy and fire him that quickly. I feel like Tomlin will be back.
I do too.
I know there was a lot of criticism for that, and he lost that team, but in the end,
still got 10 wins and he's back in the postseason.
Right, every year.
Yep.
So I don't know if Tomlin's a guy who could end up with the coaching record if he stays with it.
Well, here's my question then: like, if Tomlin is available, would you rather have Tomlin or Belichick?
Oh. Ooh. that's a tough. I would
like
probably
if you're
go
the
Tomlin.
Cowboys. Yeah.
I think Keith Tomlin seems to be more of a fit with the Cowboys than really Belichick would be.
Yeah.
And Tomlin's a guy who you can probably have more years. Belichick's 70
something. Yeah.
I mean, all those guys who retired,
Which is still weird. Pete Carroll's technically older than Bill Belichick.
right. That's because Pete Carroll always seemed like he was just younger than he was. Even when he first, like, he looked like he was in his 20s when he was first coaching in the NFL. So.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're taking off your shirt with DK Metcalf in the draft process and you're still ripped, you look a little younger than.
I don't know how those guys stay in shape doing that. And when Belichick did his presser last week at 7 a.m, he just slept on his couch in his office. There's no way he was like out and about. And went home and came back at like 5.
Yeah, no, he didn't do that.
Yeah,
no way.
The life these guys lead, I don't know. It's amazing like how they can.
I'm sorry, but live as long as they're living too.
Right.
And they're not getting burnt out to do this. I wish I had that passion for something.
They must be taking time to like do something. I mean,
they must be able to shut it off when they can go shut it off.
Yeah.
Like when Bill's on his boat fishing with Jimmy Johnson, he must be able to. I still wonder if he can shut it off though. It's Bill Belichick.
Right. Is it like just get out of? And I think me and you probably. People are like, well, why? So we'll watch sports. But there's times where it's just like.
I could need a break.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yep.
Did you watch that game? It's like, nope. I've watched a lot of games this last week. I'm just going to shut it off for a little bit and then come back when I want to do it. So
I will say this. I haven't said this publicly, but there's a lot of times when like I'm out or somebody runs into me. I don't mind talking about something else besides sports.
I'll always talk about it.
I'll always do it, but that's like, yep.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about something else? Yeah. Not politics, though, please. I
no,
get into that.
Anything but that, yeah.
Let's talk about the Bigfoot sighting that we saw in Colorado 6 months ago or something like
exactly.
that. Oh, all right. So before I let you go, I got you over a minute here. Do they keep it close Saturday nights? Packers 49ers.
I think they do.
9.5 underdogs already.
I think they can beat the spread.
No?
I think they can do that, but I'm not going to discount them. And again, it's going to come out how do you start the game? And if they come out and can get points on the board right away, and that defense can maybe get a couple shutdowns. I mean, if you got to just take what the blueprint was against Dallas.
Yeah.
Do that, but even almost ramp it up more because San Francisco, I think, is a more talented team all around than Dallas is. So,
and I think, again, to go back, we know Shanahan will be like, okay, if they struggle against the run, I've got no problem handing it off 50 times.
Right.
Because that was one of the things I thought is like, okay, is McCarthy going to stick to the run if they have success? Because that's kind of been a question mark, right? Well, then it got out of hand where they had to pass it.
Right, and I would say that was a big thing. The Packers took that out of the equation.
Right.
You're playing from behind, so you start getting a little desperate and calling more pass plays. So, yeah, I mean, if you can set the standard right away and just keep the foot on the accelerator, you can't let off against San Francisco. You'll have a chance. It's going to be tough. I think San Francisco is the favorite team for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to discount this Packers team with the youth and the excitement and the way they're playing right now. No one wants to play them. So set the tone early, get that offense clicking, and the defense needs to make some big stops. It sounds like, it's basically how you win any football game. But
can we have a similar stop Barry Sanders in the postseason, -1 yard rushing sort of thing?
Yes. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's kind of, you look back on, those are the kind of games that set the tone for your team in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, this would be one of those, if you can control Christian McCaffrey and anybody else running the ball there.
Gosh.
But it's going to be tough.
Hey.
That San Francisco team is just loaded.
We get to talk about it for another week, which if you'd have told me 2 months ago, I'm like, no. We'd be talking postseason.
We'd be talking how the Badgers are undefeated.
Probably
in Big Ten
maybe
play.
top 10 now in news rankings with all the upsets.
We will talk about them, though. Don't worry. It'll come.
Dame time with that three-pointer at the end to have a nice little bow tie for Wisconsin sports yesterday.
Yeah, but it kind of shows you what runs the ship in Wisconsin is the Packers, and if it's playoff Packers, they're number one.
Yep, exactly. So, all right, JC, we appreciate you braving the cold and coming in, man. So, maybe we'll talk about another Victory Monday next week.
I'll see.
If we talk about another Victory Monday next week, I think everybody's like, okay, it's Super Bowl now.
Right. Now the confidence is going to be through the moon.
Through the moon, over the top.
To the moon. I don't know.
Through the woods to Grandma's house we go. All right, big thanks, Justus Cleveland, Sports Director Extraordinaire, WEAU 13 News. That's going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Big thanks for tuning in on this Victory Monday edition of the Man Cave Podcast. And a reminder, if you're not following or subscribing to the podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, go ahead and do so. Click that follow. Click that subscribe button. Give us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast. Till next time, I'm Dan Casper. We'll talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.